I found my son's wife lying in a ditch off Route 9, 2 miles past the old mill. She could barely open her eyes. Your daughter-in-law, she whispered through cracked lips. She told me I was trash, that I never deserved to be part of their family. I wrapped her in my coat, drove her home, and picked up the phone. I called my sister. Helen, I said, remember what Mama taught us about fighting back? It's time. This is a story based on real events. Hello, my dears. Set everything aside for a moment. I want to share something that will make you hold your loved ones a little tighter tonight. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. We'd love to know. The November rain hadn't let up for 3 days straight, the kind of rain that seeps into your bones and makes every joint ache. I was driving back from the pharmacy in my beat-up Ford pickup, the one my late husband Earl bought in 2009, and I never had the heart to replace. The wipers could barely keep up. I'm Vivian Holloway, 63 years old, retired schoolteacher, widow of 11 years. I spent 34 years teaching 4th grade at Cedar Falls Elementary, before my knees and my patience gave out around the same time. Now I tend to my vegetable garden, volunteer at the church food pantry on Thursdays, and try to keep busy enough that the silence in the house doesn't swallow me whole. People around here know me. Small town, everyone knows everyone. They also know my story, or at least the version they tell at the diner. How Earl Holloway, a white man from old Virginia stock, married Vivian Price, a black woman from the other side of the tracks, in 1983, when half the county nearly lost their minds over it. My mama, Loretta Price, told me the night before my wedding, "Baby, love is the easy part. It's everything that comes after that tests what you're made of." She was right about most things. She was right about that too. My phone rang just as I turned onto Willow Creek Road. I almost didn't answer. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize, and I don't usually pick up for strangers. But something made me press the green button. Something I can't explain. "Mrs. Holloway," a man's voice, rough, breathing hard. "This is Dale Riggins. I run the tow service out on Route 9. You need to get out here right now. There's a woman in the drainage ditch past the old mill. She's hurt real bad. She keeps saying your name." My stomach dropped. What woman? What does she look like? Young, dark hair, pregnant, looks like. She's got a wallet with her. ID says Jessica Holloway. Emergency contact is you. Jessica. My son's wife. My daughter-in-law. The mother of my only grandchild, the one growing inside her right now at 7 months along. I made a U-turn so fast my tires screamed against the wet asphalt. The old mill was 6 miles back the way I came. 6 miles that felt like 60. Is she conscious? I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. In and out. I put a blanket over her from my truck. Called 911, but dispatch said it could be 40 minutes. We're way out. Roads are flooded on the east side. I'm coming. Don't let her move. I was a teacher, but I've had first aid training every year for 3 decades. I know what to do. Yes, ma'am. Hurry. I drove like I'd never driven before, through puddles that sprayed halfway up my windshield, past the abandoned gas station, the boarded-up feed store, the rusted mailboxes that marked the edge of what used to be farmland before the developers came sniffing around. My son, Kevin, married Jessica 4 years ago. She was 28 then, bright and ambitious, working as an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Richmond. Kevin was 32, handsome in that easy way his father had been, but softer somehow. Less sure of himself. He'd gone to work for his mother-in-law's family business right after the wedding, the Davenport Group. Commercial real estate, property management, some construction. Big money by our county standards. Enormous money, actually. Patricia Davenport, Kevin's mother-in-law, and Jessica's mother ran the whole operation with an iron fist wrapped in a silk glove. In public, she was all charity galas and church committees and handshakes with the mayor. She sat on the board of every organization that mattered. Behind closed doors, I'd heard whispers. The way she looked at me at the wedding, like I was something stuck to the bottom of her designer shoe, told me everything I needed to know. White trash, she'd called me once, not knowing I was standing just around the corner at Kevin and Jessica's housewarming party. I don't care if she was a teacher, she comes from nothing, and that mixed blood in their family, it's a stain that doesn't wash out. I never told Kevin what I heard. What good would it have done? He was already so tangled up in that family's money and influence that telling him would have only made him choose, and I was terrified of which side he'd land on. I saw the tow trucks flashing yellow lights through the rain before I saw anything else. I pulled over, killed the engine, and ran. My bad knee screamed with every step, but I didn't care. The ditch was about 4 feet deep, half filled with muddy rainwater. Dale Riggins, a burly man in a grease-stained jacket, was standing at the edge, shining a flashlight down. There, he pointed. Jessica lay on her side in the mud, curled around her belly like she was trying to protect the baby even while unconscious. Her face was almost unrecognizable. Her left eye was swollen shut, her lips split open, blood mixing with rain and dirt. Her blouse was torn at the shoulder, and I could see bruises already darkening on her collarbone. I half slid, half climbed down into the ditch. The cold water soaked through my shoes instantly, but I barely noticed. Jessica. Sweetheart, it's Vivian. I'm here. Her good eye fluttered open. For a moment, she didn't seem to know where she was. Then recognition flooded in, and with it, tears. Mom, she whispered. Not Vivian. Not Mrs. Holloway. Mom. She'd never called me that before. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Don't try to move. I checked her pulse. Fast, but steady. Her breathing was shallow. I gently felt along her ribs, and she cried out. At least 2 broken, maybe 3. Her right wrist was bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. Who did this to you? I asked, keeping my voice calm even though inside I was a furnace of rage. She swallowed. It took her 3 tries to get the words out. Patricia. Your mother? She nodded, then winced so hard I thought she might pass out. She found out. About the accounts, the properties. I found everything, Vivian. She's been stealing. Millions. From the tenants, from the investors, from everyone. My mind raced. We need to get you to a hospital. No. The panic in her voice was immediate, visceral. She has people at St. Mary's, on the board. She funds the new wing. They'll call her. They'll tell Kevin, and Kevin will. She trailed off, but I understood. Kevin would side with Patricia. He always did. Not because he was cruel, but because he was weak. Because Patricia had spent 4 years making him dependent on her money, her approval, her version of reality. She'd isolated him from me so gradually, I almost didn't notice until the phone calls dropped to once a month, then once every few months, then only on holidays when Jessica reminded him. The ambulance is coming, I said. We have to, please. She grabbed my hand with her unbroken one, squeezing with surprising strength. Take me to your house, please. If I go to that hospital, I'll never get out. She told me no one would believe me. She said she'd tell everyone I fell, that I'm unstable, that pregnancy hormones made me delusional. The ambulance siren wailed somewhere in the distance. I had maybe 3 minutes to decide. I looked at Dale Riggins, still standing at the edge of the ditch, rain dripping off his cap. Dale, I need a favor. He squinted down at me. What kind of favor? Tell the paramedics it was a mistake. Wrong location. You found a deer, not a person. Something. Anything. Lady, she needs a doctor. I know first aid. 34 years in an elementary school. I've handled broken bones, asthma attacks, allergic reactions, seizures. I can stabilize her. And the baby? I'll get her to a doctor I trust, just not that hospital. Not tonight. He looked at Jessica, at her battered face, at the way she clutched her belly. Then he looked at me. I don't know what he saw. Maybe a mother's fury, maybe a grandmother's desperation. Whatever it was, it convinced him. You didn't see me, he said. And I didn't see you. I got Jessica out of that ditch. It took everything I had. She couldn't put weight on her left ankle, and every step made her gasp. But she moved. Together, we made it to my truck. I laid her across the back seat, covered her with the emergency blanket I keep behind the driver's seat, and pulled away just as the ambulance lights appeared in my rearview mirror. The drive home took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of Jessica drifting in and out of consciousness, of me talking to her constantly just to keep her awake, of rain hammering the roof so hard I could barely hear my own voice. Stay with me, sweetheart. Tell me about the baby. Have you picked a name? Daniel, she murmured. After his grandfather. After Earl. I nearly drove off the road. She'd named the baby after my husband. My late husband, who Patricia Davenport probably didn't even remember existed. We reached my house just after 7. A small yellow Cape Cod with green shutters that Earl and I bought the year we got married. Nothing fancy. The porch sags a little on the left side. The kitchen faucet drips. But it's mine, paid off, and it's safe. I got Jessica inside, onto the sofa. Started a fire. Put the kettle on. Then I went to work on her injuries with the first aid kit I keep stocked, like a small pharmacy, a habit from decades of school emergencies. I cleaned every cut, splinted her wrist with a rolled magazine of medical tape, wrapped her ribs, iced the swelling on her face. She was tough, tougher than I'd given her credit for. She cried only once, when I had to set the wrist straighter, and even then she bit down on a washcloth and didn't scream. "Now tell me everything," I said when I'd done what I could. Jessica took a slow breath. 3 weeks ago, Patricia asked me to help reconcile the books for the Davenport Group's annual audit. She said the regular accountant was on medical leave, and since I have a CPA license, it made sense to keep it in the family. "And you found something." "Not at first. Everything looked clean on the surface. But I noticed a pattern. Every quarter, large payments went to a property management company called Meridian Holdings. Maintenance contracts, renovation invoices, consulting fees, hundreds of thousands each time. Let me guess, Meridian Holdings doesn't actually exist." "Oh, it exists. On paper, registered in Delaware with a P.O. box address. But there's no office, no employees, no actual services rendered. It's a shell." And when I dug deeper, I found 3 more just like it. Apex Consulting, Riverstone Partners, Summit Property Services. All created within the last 5 years. All receiving regular payments from the Davenport Group. How much total? Over $12 million. Just in the last 3 years alone. I let out a long breath. $12 million siphoned through fake companies. And Patricia Davenport sitting in the front pew at church every Sunday, leading the prayer circle, chairing the charity auction for the Children's Hospital. I confronted her. Jessica continued, her voice dropping. "I know, it was stupid, but I thought, she's my mother. Whatever else she is, she's my mother. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was wrong." "You weren't wrong." "No." A tear slid down her bruised cheek. She didn't even try to deny it. She just got very calm, very quiet. That's when she's most dangerous. When she goes quiet. She said I had 2 choices. Forget what I saw and be rewarded, or make trouble and face consequences. And you chose trouble. I chose the truth. I told her I'd copied everything to a flash drive, that if anything happened to me, the files would go to the FBI. That's when she suggested we take a drive. Said she wanted to show me a property outside town that would explain the financial discrepancies. I closed my eyes. I could picture it perfectly. Patricia Davenport behind the wheel of her black Mercedes, calm as a Sunday morning, driving her own daughter to a deserted stretch of road. She pulled over by the old mill. Said the property was just through the tree line. When I got out of the car, Jessica's voice broke. She had a tire iron from the trunk. She must have planned it. She hit me from behind first. I went down. And then she just kept hitting. She kept saying I was ungrateful. That she'd given me everything. That I was ruining the family. Ruining the name. "And the baby?" I asked, barely trusting my voice. She knew. She's known for months. Jessica's hand went to her belly. She said the baby would be better off without a mother who couldn't keep her mouth shut. Something inside me went very still. Not calm. Still. The way the air goes still before a tornado. "Where's the flash drive?" I asked. Taped inside the lining of my purse. She didn't check. She took my phone but left the purse. Thought I'd be dead before anyone found me. I retrieved the purse from the truck. Found the flash drive exactly where Jessica said it would be. A tiny black rectangle no bigger than my thumbnail, containing $12 million worth of evidence. Then I picked up my phone and called my sister. Helen Price Washington, 61 years old. Retired Army intelligence. 22 years of service, 3 tours overseas, a Distinguished Service Medal, and a mind like a steel trap. She lived 40 miles south, ran a small security consulting firm, and was the toughest human being I'd ever known. And I'd known our mama. "Helen, I need you." "What happened?" No small talk. No pleasantries. "That was Helen. Jessica's here. Patricia beat her. She's pregnant, 7 months. And she has evidence that Patricia's been embezzling millions." 3 seconds of silence. Then, "I'm leaving now. Don't use your phone again until I get there. Turn it off. If Jessica has a phone, remove the battery. Check your car for tracking devices." Tracking devices? Vivian. The woman just tried to kill her own daughter. "You think she's above putting a GPS tracker on your truck? Check it. Now." I went outside with a flashlight. It was still pouring rain and I was soaked within seconds. I crawled under the truck, running my hand along the frame, the wheel wells, the undercarriage. Nothing. Then I checked the glove compartment, under the seats, inside the spare tire well. And there it was, a small magnetic box attached to the inside of the engine compartment. Kevin had insisted on servicing my truck at the Davenport Group's fleet garage 2 months ago. Now I knew why. I brought the device inside and set it on the kitchen table. Jessica stared at it. "They've been tracking you," she said. "Because of me. Because they knew if anything went wrong, I'd come to you." "They were right about that much," I said. Then I turned off both our phones and sat down to wait for my sister. Helen arrived at 3 in the morning. She came through the door like a force of nature, compact and efficient. Her gray hair cropped short. Her eyes scanning the room the way they'd scanned hostile territories for 2 decades. She carried a duffel bag that I knew from experience contained things most civilians wouldn't recognize. She looked at Jessica's face and said nothing for a full 30 seconds. Then she knelt beside the sofa and took Jessica's hand. "I'm Helen, Vivian's sister. We're going to fix this. But I need you to tell me everything. Every detail, every name, every number." "Can you do that?" Jessica nodded. For the next 2 hours, Helen listened, asked precise questions, and took notes in a small leather-bound notebook. She examined the flash drive on a laptop she'd brought, one that she said was air-gapped, meaning it had never been connected to the internet. "This is solid," she said, scrolling through spreadsheets and scanned documents. "Shell companies, fabricated invoices, offshore transfers, classic embezzlement scheme. Your mother's been running this for at least 6 years based on what's here." "Can we go to the police?" I asked. Helen shook her head. "Patricia Davenport donated the new patrol cars last year. Her nephew is on the county board of supervisors. Half the judges in this district have been to her Christmas party. Local law enforcement is not our friend." "Then what?" "We go over their heads. FEI Financial Crimes Division. But we need more than what's on this drive. We need corroboration. And we need to move Jessica somewhere safe while we build the case." She stood and walked to the window, peering through the curtain at the dark, rain-soaked yard. "They'll come looking for her. If Patricia left her for dead and Jessica turns up alive, she'll panic. Panicked people do dangerous things." "Where do we take her?" I asked. "She can't travel far." "The baby." "I have a place," Helen said. "A friend's cabin on Lake Wilder, about 30 miles north. Off-grid, no internet, accessible only by a fire road that doesn't show up on most GPS maps. She can rest there while we work." "And a doctor?" Jessica asked. "For the baby. I need to know the baby is okay." "I know a doctor," Helen said. "Army buddy, retired OB/GYN. Lives in the next county. She'll come to us. No hospitals, no records." We left at first light. Helen drove her SUV with Jessica in the back seat. I followed in my truck after removing the tracker and leaving it on my mailbox post. Let them think I was home. The cabin was everything Helen promised. Small, solid, hidden in a stand of white pines overlooking a steel-gray lake. No neighbors for miles. A wood-burning stove, a hand pump for water, and silence so deep it felt like a living thing. Dr. Renata Okafor arrived that afternoon, a tall, commanding woman with gentle hands and no tolerance for nonsense. She examined Jessica thoroughly, checked the baby with a portable ultrasound, and declared them both stable but in need of rest and monitoring. 2 broken ribs, fractured wrist, mild concussion, extensive bruising, she listed for Helen, who wrote everything down. Consistent with a sustained assault with a blunt instrument. This wasn't a fall, this wasn't an accident. "We know," Helen said. "Document everything, Doctor," Okafor said, handing me a camera. "Every bruise, every cut, every swollen joint. Date stamped. These photos may be the difference between justice and nothing." I photographed my daughter-in-law's injuries with hands that shook from anger, not fear. Every purple mark, every split in her skin was evidence. Every wince as she shifted position was testimony. While Jessica rested, Helen and I sat by the stove and planned. "Here's what I found so far," Helen said, spreading printouts across the rough wooden table. "Meridian Holdings, the main shell company, is registered to a man named Thomas Ferry. Thomas Ferry died in 2019. His identity was stolen, social security number, driver's license, everything. Used to open bank accounts and sign corporate documents. Patricia did this herself. She had help. A lawyer named Dennis Crane handles all the Davenport Group's legal work. His signature is on every one of these incorporation documents. He's in it up to his neck." "What about Kevin?" I asked the question I'd been dreading. "Is my son involved?" Helen was quiet for a moment. "I don't know yet. His name doesn't appear on any of the shell company documents. But he's on the board of the Davenport Group. He signs quarterly reports. Whether he knows what he's signing is another question." I stared at the fire through the stove's glass door. My son. My only child. The boy I'd raised to know right from wrong, to treat people with dignity, to stand up when something needed standing up against. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost that backbone. Patricia Davenport had sanded it down to nothing, replaced it with comfort and compliance. There's something else, Helen said carefully. Something Jessica may not know yet. What? 2 years ago, a former employee of the Davenport Group filed a complaint with the State Attorney General's office. Alleged financial irregularities. The complaint was investigated for 3 months and then dropped. The investigator who dropped it retired 6 weeks later with a very generous pension supplement from a company called Summit Property Services. One of the shell companies. The same. So Patricia didn't just steal. She corrupted the systems meant to catch her. She bought silence the way other people buy groceries. We can't let her buy her way out of this, I said. She won't, Helen promised. Not this time. Over the next 5 days, Helen worked with a network of contacts I never knew she had. Former military intelligence analysts, forensic accountants, a retired FBI agent she'd served with in Germany. They traced the money through 4 layers of shell companies to accounts in the Cayman Islands and Liechtenstein. They documented over $15 million in diverted funds spanning 7 years. They found 3 other former employees who'd been paid to keep quiet and 2 who hadn't been paid but had been threatened. On the 6th day, Helen made a call. Agent Morales, this is Helen Price Washington. I have a package for you. Financial fraud, assault, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. The target is Patricia Davenport of the Davenport Group, Cedar Falls, Virginia. I'm sending you a secure file now. You'll want to move quickly. The suspect has means and motive to flee. She hung up and looked at me. It's done. FBI Financial Crimes Task Force out of the Richmond Field Office. Agent Morales is someone I vetted personally. Patricia's connections don't reach that far. I felt something release in my chest that I hadn't known I was holding. But it wasn't relief. Not yet. Relief would come later. Right now, it was just the beginning of the end. Jessica was sitting up by then, stronger each day. The bruises on her face had faded from purple to yellow-green. Her wrist was healing in the splint Dr. Okafor had replaced my improvised one with. And the baby, Daniel, was kicking so hard you could see it through her shirt. There's something I need to tell you, Jessica said to me on the 7th morning, while Helen was outside checking the perimeter she walked every dawn and dusk. What is it, sweetheart? This isn't the first time. Her voice was barely above a whisper. 2 years ago, before the wedding, I was pregnant, only 8 weeks. Patricia found out before I'd even told Kevin. My blood went cold. What did she do? She put something in my food. I don't know what exactly. I started bleeding the next day, lost the baby. The doctor said it was a natural miscarriage. Stress, he said. First pregnancies are unpredictable, he said. She wiped her eyes. But I found the bottle months later. Hidden in her bathroom cabinet, an herbal supplement that induces contractions, the kind they warn pregnant women never to take. And Kevin? Her face twisted. I told him, showed him the bottle. He said I was being paranoid, that his mother would never do something like that I was letting postpartum hormones cloud my judgment. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Postpartum hormones. From a pregnancy I lost because his mother poisoned me. I held her while she cried, held her and thought about my son, about the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them roses, about the man he'd become under Patricia Davenport's careful, relentless manipulation. He hadn't just failed to protect his wife. He dismissed her pain, denied her reality, chosen comfort over truth. And that might be the one thing I could never forgive him for. The FBI moved faster than any of us expected. Within 2 weeks, Patricia Davenport was arrested at her home on a Tuesday morning, still in her silk robe, her coffee growing cold on the kitchen counter. The charges were extensive: wire fraud, money laundering, assault, and later, after Jessica's testimony, attempted murder and poisoning. Dennis Crane, the lawyer, was arrested the same day. He cooperated immediately. Kevin called me that night, the first time he'd called in 4 months. Mom, what's happening? They arrested Patricia. They're saying she stole millions. They're saying she hurt Jessica. None of this makes sense. It makes perfect sense, Kevin. You just never wanted to see it. Where's Jessica? Is she okay? The baby, she's safe. The baby is safe. The baby is safe. No thanks to you. Silence. Then, quietly, I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know about the money. And the first baby, the one Jessica lost, did you know about that? More silence. Longer this time. She told you, he said. She told me everything. And you knew, Kevin. You knew what your mother-in-law did, and you told Jessica she was imagining things. I didn't want to believe it. That's not the same as not knowing, and it's not an excuse. He was crying now. I could hear it through the phone. My son, 40 years old, weeping like the boy who skinned his knee on the driveway. And despite everything, despite the fury and the disappointment, my heart ached for him. What do I do? He asked. You start telling the truth. To the FBI, to Jessica, to yourself. And then you start earning back what you threw away. If you can. Will she see me? Will she let me see the baby when it comes? That's not up to me, Kevin. That's up to her. And right now, I wouldn't count on it. The trial was set for the following spring. In the meantime, Jessica divorced Kevin. It was uncontested. He didn't fight it, didn't ask for custody, didn't argue about assets. I think somewhere inside, he knew he had no ground to stand on. Jessica received a settlement from the Davenport Group's legitimate assets, enough to start over comfortably. Daniel Earl Holloway was born on a snowy January morning at 7 pounds 4 ounces, screaming like he had opinions about the world and intended to share them immediately. I was in the delivery room holding Jessica's hand when the doctor placed him on her chest. He had dark eyes and a full head of black hair and the most perfect tiny fingers I'd ever seen. Daniel, Jessica whispered, touching his face. Meet your grandma. She placed him in my arms, and I looked down at this child, this impossible, beautiful child who existed despite everything that had been done to prevent him. In his face, I saw Earl. I saw my mama. I saw the stubborn, unbowed strength of every woman in my family who'd been told she wasn't enough and proved the world wrong. Helen was in the waiting room with flowers. Wild ones, picked from someone's garden, because Helen doesn't do florists. She held Daniel with the careful precision of a woman who'd handled explosives but found a newborn infinitely more terrifying. He's got the Price jaw, she observed. Poor kid. He's got the Holloway heart, I corrected. Lucky kid. Spring came. The azaleas bloomed along my fence line. Daniel grew. Jessica healed, not just her body, but something deeper. Something that had been broken long before Patricia ever picked up that tire iron. She started working again, remotely, for an accounting firm in Washington that specifically recruited whistleblowers and fraud investigators. Her experience had become her expertise. She and Daniel moved into a small cottage 3 miles from my house. Close enough to walk when the weather was nice. Close enough that I could be there in 5 minutes if she needed me. And she did need me, some nights, when the nightmares came back, when she woke up gasping, reaching for her belly to make sure the baby was still there. Patricia Davenport was convicted in April. 14 counts. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. She was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 12. In the courtroom, she looked small. Diminished. The designer suits and the commanding presence and the perfectly maintained facade, all of it stripped away. She was just a woman who'd chosen money over everything else and lost it all. Kevin attended the sentencing. He sat in the back row alone. Afterwards, he approached Jessica in the hallway. I stood close but didn't interfere. Can I see him? He asked, nodding toward Daniel and Jessica's arms. Just once, just to see him. Jessica looked at him for a long time. Then she turned to me. I gave her the slightest nod. This was her decision, but she wanted to know I'd support whatever she chose. She held Daniel up so Kevin could see his face. The baby stared at his father with wide, dark, curious eyes. He looks like your mom, Kevin said softly. Like Vivian. Yes, Jessica said. He does. I'm getting help, Kevin said. Therapy. Trying to understand how I let all of this happen. How I became someone who. He stopped. Swallowed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know I'm trying. Jessica nodded. I know, but trying isn't enough yet. Maybe someday, not now. He accepted it. He left. I watched him walk down the courthouse steps alone, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not anger, not satisfaction, but grief. Grief for the man my son could have been. Grief for the father Daniel might never truly know. Summer again. Daniel took his first steps on a Tuesday afternoon in July, wobbling across my kitchen floor toward a wooden spoon he decided was the most fascinating object in the universe. Jessica recorded it on her phone. Helen drove up that weekend specifically to watch the video 17 times. He's got good balance, she said approvingly. Tactical awareness, too. See how he checks his surroundings before committing to the spoon? That's spatial intelligence. He's 11 months old, Helen. Early development matters, Vivian. I'm just observing. One evening in late August, Jessica and I sat on my porch while Daniel slept in a stroller between us. Fireflies blinked in the yard. The air smelled like cut grass and the last of the summer roses. "You know what Patricia called me?" Jessica said, watching the fireflies. "When she was hitting me. She said I was nothing. That I came from nothing and I'd given her family nothing but problems. That marrying Kevin was the biggest mistake of my life." "She was wrong about everything except the last part," I said. Jessica laughed, a real laugh, full and warm and surprised. "You're terrible." "I'm honest. Your mama raised a liar, a thief, and a would-be killer. I raised a man who couldn't stand up for his own wife. Neither of us got it perfect. But Daniel." I looked at the sleeping baby, his dark lashes against his round cheeks. "Daniel is our chance to get it right." "You think we can? Raise him better than we were raised?" "I think we already are. He's got a mother who risked everything to protect him before he was even born. He's got a grandma who'll teach him that kindness isn't weakness. He's got a great aunt who can probably teach him to field strip a radio transmitter by age 6. "I was thinking more like 8, Helen called from inside the house, where she was supposedly not listening. Jessica took my hand. "Thank you. For everything. For that night in the rain. For believing me. For not telling me to go back to him." "I'd never tell you that, I know. That's why I called you Mom." I squeezed her hand and we sat there, 2 women who'd been through fire, watching the fireflies dance in the warm Virginia night. Behind us, the screen door creaked as Helen came out with 3 glasses of iced tea and a plate of the lemon bars I'd baked that morning. "To the Holloway women," Helen said, raising her glass. "I'm a Price," she added, "but I'll make an exception." "To all of us," I said. "To Mama, who taught us to fight smart. To Earl, who taught me that love doesn't care about the color of your skin. And to Daniel, who's going to grow up knowing exactly who he is and where he comes from." Jessica lifted her glass. "To second chances." We drank our tea as the stars came out one by one over Cedar Falls. Somewhere in a federal prison, Patricia Davenport was spending her first summer behind bars. Somewhere in the city, Kevin was sitting in a therapist's office, trying to learn how to be a man his son could be proud of. And here, on this creaky porch, 3 generations of stubborn, resilient, unbreakable women were building something new from the wreckage of what came before. Not revenge. Something better. A life. Daniel stirred in his stroller, opened his dark eyes, and smiled at me. A gummy, drooly, absolutely perfect smile. "That's my boy," I whispered. "That's my Daniel." If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring you more stories like this every single day, and don't miss the next video appearing on your screen right now. Take care of each other, and remember, the people who love you are the only treasure that matters.